Paying college athletes, that issue is coming to a head. California has signed into law legislation that they can benefit from their likeness. New York is considering a bill that would require college athletic departments to share 15% of their annual revenue with their student athletes. Sports business analyst and former senior editor at ESPN magazine, Keith Reed, joins me on the WHO Newsmakers line to talk this over. Keith, good morning. Welcome to WHO in Des Moines.
Thank you.
Keith, when you hear California doing this, New York proposing that, that means this issue has come to a head. What do you think are the factors that have caused this issue of paying student athletes to come to the forefront here?
Well, it's no longer possible to ignore, ignore the challenges that student athletes have, right? I mean, there was a point in time when it was enough for the NCAA and for those who supported not paying college athletes to say, hey, these kids are getting an education, they're getting an education for free, why should we have to pay them? But today, in an era where, Power 5 conference head coaches all make, seven-figure salaries, right? It's almost impossible for anybody to look at that and say, even with the value of a college education today, that it's anywhere near equitable for student athletes who risk injury, who give their labor, who give of their time, who don't have the ability to do internships, who are not allowed to work off campus, many of whom have, families who are destitute in and of themselves. It's impossible to ignore that. So what's happened now is that legislatures, particularly in New York, California, and even courts, if you look at the O'Bannon decision from a couple of years ago, have begun to recognize the inequity in the system that allows executives, the NCAA, boosters, sponsors, and coaches to profit so greatly without compensating the athletes.
Keith, you're a sports business analyst. Do you see any harm to college athletics being done by paying student athletes? How would it change the game?
So, do I see any harm? I think there are a number of potential pitfalls or a number of potential issues that arise when you start to talk about compensating athletes. How would you compensate fairly college athletes? Would it be a free market system? Would you have some sort of free agency? What then happens to smaller market schools that don't have the money to be able to compensate athletes like a larger market school? What happens to non-revenue sports? Do we want to hurt, or is there the possibility of hurting, say, women's bowling or women's volleyball? If you're giving money, if you're giving millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever the case is to student athletes in Division I college basketball, for example, we are by no means anywhere near a solution to the problem. Nobody's proposed anything that looks like equity at this point, but we do need to be having the conversation about how we get to that.
Keith, I'm right with you. I mean, I think there's an issue if there are colleges that generate millions of dollars off of what the athletes do, and the kid is still calling home to his parents and saying, please send me lunch money. I think what you're saying is right, and I hear what you're saying. You're saying there is a problem, somehow we have to address it. Am I correct in that assessment?
That's exactly what I'm saying, yes. And it's overdue to be addressed. I mean, you're not just even that kid who can call home and say, I need some money, can you send me a couple of dollars? That kid's in a better position than lots of these college athletes who aren't in that position at all because they don't have anybody at home to be able to call, who they can call and say, hey, listen, I don't have money, my per diems run out, I can't work off campus, can you send me some money? There are lots of kids who, if they make that phone call, nobody at home has the ability to send them anything, right?
Yeah.
And as of today, if they accept even a Happy Meal from McDonald's, they risk their eligibility.
Yeah.
That's a ridiculous proposition for a student athlete whose labor is partly responsible for generating millions of dollars in revenue for their school and for the NCAA.
Keith, when do you think the NCAA steps in to solve this problem? Because you got New York and California involved. I imagine I wouldn't be surprised to hear the Texas legislature's thinking about something, the Florida legislature's thinking about something. When's the NCAA finally get involved and actually solve the problem?
Well, I think the NCAA is now forced to address the issue, and I think that's the point of what the legislatures are doing around the country.
Yeah.
The smart thing about what California recently did is that they didn't make it the responsibility of the colleges and universities themselves to compensate the students. So that student now has the ability, or will have the ability, to go and negotiate with, say, a video game company or another company who wanted to use their image and likeness. And the NCAA is then put in the position of saying, you know, as of right now, if that kid accepts money from a sponsor or from the maker, or from EA Sports or whoever the case is, that kid risks their eligibility. It puts the NCAA in the position of having to tell one of its stars eventually at a big program, we're not going to let you be on the field because you wanted to get paid for your face being in a video game. And the NCAA is not going to want to be in that position. So they're going to have to now address something that they haven't been forced to before. So I think that to answer your question, that the time is now for the NCAA to step up. The problem is that the NCAA continues to put forward the farce of amateurism in college sports, and I think that's the hill that they want to die on. They're not interested in stepping in to solve the problem. They're interested in maintaining the system as it stands, status quo as it is today, and they're not going to be able to do that for very much longer.
Great commentary. That is sports business analyst and former senior editor at ESPN magazine. His name's Keith Reed. Keith, thanks for throwing in with this topic. I think we're going to be talking a lot more about it in the future. Have a great day.